Hey, welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful idea from Robert Greene's The Laws of Human Nature. It's an idea that gets right to the heart of our most baffling decisions. You know, that constant battle we all seem to have with our own irrational minds.
So let me ask you this. Have you ever looked back on a decision you made and just thought, what on earth was I thinking? Maybe you fell for completely the wrong person, or you got swept up in some foolish project, or said something you immediately wished you could take back. It's a feeling we all know. And according to Greene, really digging into that feeling is the key to understanding ourselves.
So, what's really going on in those moments? Well, Greene introduces this incredible concept, the idea of a stranger within us. Now, this isn't some kind of demon or anything. It's an emotional, super impulsive, and often hidden part of our own personality that, a lot of the time, just wrestles control away from our conscious, rational mind. This quote from the book just captures that feeling perfectly, doesn't it? It's more than just frustrating. This feeling is the source of so many of our negative patterns. We feel kind of helpless because we can't seem to get a handle on this other self that keeps pushing us toward self-destructive behavior. And to see just how devastating this force can be, not just for one person, but for a whole society, we're going to look at a classic historical example.
Okay, let's travel way back in time to ancient Athens. For a while, this place was the absolute pinnacle of civilization. Art, philosophy, democracy, the whole deal. But in a shockingly short amount of time, it all came crashing down. And not because of some big, bad external enemy, but because the entire city gave in to a wave of collective irrationality. Let's just walk through this tragic collapse. Back in the 450s BC, Athens is living its golden age, led by this incredible statesman named Pericles. But then, in 429 BC, a plague sweeps through the city and Pericles dies. Suddenly, there's no one with that steady, rational hand at the wheel, and chaos starts to creep in. This all comes to a head in 415 BC when, totally driven by greed and a sense of invincibility, the Athenians launched this massive, ill-advised invasion of Sicily. It was a complete and utter disaster. It crippled the city, and that led directly to its final defeat just 10 years later. The most important thing to remember here is this was totally a self-inflicted wound.
So who was this guy, Pericles? The one who managed to keep the city's self-destructive side in check? Well, he was the polar opposite of the typical loud, emotional politicians of his day. He was calm, he was strategic, and he valued long-term stability way more than short-term glory. He was, for all intents and purposes, the rational mind in control.
This quote just nails his mindset. Pericles knew that the biggest threat to Athens wasn't some army on the horizon. No, it was the enemy within, that tendency for people, especially when they get into big groups, to make emotional and truly disastrous decisions. And this comparison just makes the difference crystal clear. On one side, under Pericles, you've got a calm spirit, a long-term view, a defensive strategy that created unity and order. But after he's gone, it completely flips. You get heated emotions, short-sighted greed, aggressive overreach, and it all spirals into factionalism and chaos, ruin. Now, the story of Athens isn't just some dusty old history lesson. Greene uses it to illustrate a fundamental law of human nature, one that affects every single one of us, every single day. He calls it the law of irrationality. And here's the crucial point, the thing we all have to grapple with. We love to think of ourselves as rational beings making logical choices, but Greene argues that's a dangerous illusion. In reality, our thinking is constantly being infected by our emotions, by our ego, our insecurities, our desires. They act like a filter, pulling us away from seeing things as they really are. And that disconnect, that's why we keep making the same bad decisions over and over. But, and this is a big but, there is an antidote. Greene defines rationality not as being some cold, emotionless robot, but as an active power that we have to work to cultivate. It's a skill. It's the ability to step back, to recognize that emotional pull, and to choose to think instead of just react. It's about seeing the world, not just our feelings about the world. Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we get better at it? Greene uses this really powerful metaphor of Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom and strategy, who is basically the guiding spirit of Pericles. The goal for us is to cultivate our own inner Athena, that higher, rational part of ourself. And he gives us a really practical 3-step framework. First, and this is huge, just recognize that your thoughts are always being colored by your emotions. Just knowing that is a massive first step. Second, when you feel a really strong emotion, anger, excitement, fear, whatever, don't just immediately act on it. Take a breath, Step back and analyze it. Ask yourself, where is this really coming from? Is it even justified? And third, you have to practice the art of thinking before you react. Try to deliberately pull that emotional charge out of the equation so you can see the situation with more clarity, just like Pericles did.
At the end of the day, rationality isn't some old, dusty ideal from ancient Greece. It's a potential that lies inside every single one of us, just waiting to be developed. It's the key to breaking those negative patterns and finally taking real control of your life. So the only question left is, are you willing to do the work and start listening to that quieter, wiser voice?